So right now is a good time to put the gunnel on, which is a piece of 1x2 that runs at the top of the side. And I'm also going to put a spray rail, which is a piece about 1 inch by 1 inch that is about 8 inches down from the bottom. That's going to run the length of the boat. And this is what I cut the same stock that I cut the chines out of, which is 1 inch by 5.5 wide AZAC deck board, which it's pretty stiff until you rip it up, and it's pretty flexible. But I think by the time all this stuff comes together, the boat should be rigid. But then again, this is experimental. So I already got the other side set up. I'll show you how I do it on this side. I'm going to start with this gunnel, and then I'm going to put the spray rail on afterwards. And I'm going to get everything temporary screwed, and then I'll sand and route everything, and then I'll come back with the glue. We'll pull it off, glue behind it, stick it on forever. Alright, my first measurement's going to be I'm going to come down to the transom. I'm just going to take a measurement. I'm going to make 90 inches. And I'm going to make the end of that gunnel 90.5. So I just use that reference mark of 90. That makes this a 1/2 inch longer. We'll cut that off later. So I'm not going to need a whole lot of screws on this, because the glue is going to do most of the work. So I'm going to put the screws coming in 9 1/4. I'm going to go every 32 inches for these screws, because this thing's laying nice anyway. There's no trick to bending this at all. So I'm going to drop this gunnel for a minute. And I'm just going to pilot some holes, make it easier on me. So where I have these 32-inch marks, I'm just going to go in the center of that 2-inch gunnel, give myself a pilot. I'm going to pop that back in place. Line up that 90-inch mark I had. Now I got to get down. Set some screws. wasn't bad at all, getting this temporary on there. Now I want to get the spray rail on, and I made up, cut up some little pieces that I could make for a jig to hold it. I made these pieces up. I don't know if they work yet. So I'm setting the bow first. That's the first temporary screw I'm going to put in right now. So I cut this other side back so I can kind of get an idea of what we're lining up. So for that, I'm putting a 2-inch drywall screw that will back out later. Okay. So I can move this. I don't need this here anymore. So I'm using my gauge block here to keep this spray rail parallel with the gunnel. And that brings me about 8 inches from the bottom. The water line is probably about 6 inches. This seemed like a good place to put the spray rail. So I'm just marking top and bottom. I'll put a pilot hole. And I'll screw that from the inside. So I got my gunnel and spray rail on. Next thing I'm going to do, mix up some glue, stick them on. Now that everything has been temporarily screwed on there, I got all my holes pre-drilled. I'm going to pull this off and do a little routing. I'm going to put a little radius on these outside of the gunnel. And the back side of this is smooth. I'm going to take the sandpaper to that. I always run my gunnels and spray rails, anything I can long, and then trim them in place. Got some epoxy with silica mixed in there, make it nice and thick. I'm going to make like a caulking gun with this plastic bag that I found on my workbench. So I got to transfer it in there, cut the corner, and use it like an icing bag. All right, let's spread it. All right, let's see how well. See how my hole works. So one of the tricks to working with epoxy is get it spread out fast, because it builds up heat. The more epoxy together, the more it wants to set off. So by spreading it, it gives you longer working time. Screw gun holders. Okay, first thing I want to do is check the length. The end in the right spot. So line this screw up. If you notice, I have those screws protruding out. Let me put a clamp behind that. Just put a little pressure on that so it'll grab when I tighten it up. Tighten it all the way. Just got it to grab, hopefully. Spreading out my thickened epoxy. This time I'm using a cut down chip brush. The good news is I have enough epoxy mixed. That's the first part I want to get it on. I'll get a couple clamps ready. heard you never can have too many clamps, so let's use them all. Which that's about it. Alright, I'm liking it. So the gunnel is all glued on, both sides, sprayed rail done. Used a whole bunch of clamps, but we never have to take that off again.